So as you know, if you're subscribed to this channel, I did a biggest steals of the first round, biggest steals of day 2, so that's round 2 and 3, and this is going to be the biggest steals of the 2023 draft as a whole. So if you're interested, oh man, did you like this pick in round 2? It didn't make the video. It may actually be in that round 2 and 3 video. We're going to be brushing over some of these and really kind of focusing more on day 3 with some of the best value picks of the draft and some guys I could really see being impact players and sometimes even good role players. We'll kick it off with Jalen Carter, who obviously has the makings to be one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. Really good run stopper, but also gives you a lot of power as a pass rusher as well. He drops to 9 because of character concerns, but in Philly, he's got a bunch of former teammates around him at Georgia. I mean, Howie Roseman made sure of that. Even brought in Nolan Smith in this draft, who I would consider to be a steal as well. Keely Ringo could potentially be a steal if he develops as a corner. Very, very good athlete. Howie Roseman just took the all-Georgia approach. They even traded for DeAndre Swift, although he was, I don't believe, ever a teammate of Jalen Carter, although there might be like a year of overlap. It's possible, but I think DeAndre Swift was a rookie in 2019. He was actually a rookie in 2020, so he didn't win a national championship or anything, but there could be some crossover, some of those Georgia guys, depending on how long they were there. Some of the younger guys would have just missed them probably, but a bunch of potential steals for the Eagles in this draft. I thought they did a really, really good job. Jalen Carter is the headliner, but Nolan Smith, potentially Keely Ringo down the board as well. The Eagles did a really good job in this draft, and I'll be doing a video grading every team in the 2023 draft as I see it right now. I'll talk more about that in that video, but just obviously we can't know how these guys are going to develop, how they're going to pan out, how their careers will go. It's just how it looks right now, right here. I didn't like the order I said that. And one of my favorite picks of the entire draft was, of course, making this video, Christian Gonzalez at 17. I thought he's right up there for the best corner in the draft, depending on what you want. Devin Witherspoon's really, really good. I think he is a better tackler overall, maybe a little bit more feisty, would fit really well in the nickel, and Christian Gonzalez really could have gone before him in the draft. Probably a more true boundary corner just based on size and arm length, and he fits the profile of the modern-day corner. Really fluid in coverage as well, which is rare of somebody of his size, and he falls to 17 in the draft. The Patriots were able to trade down and still get him. The reports on why he fell were related to how much does he actually love football. I obviously cannot corroborate any of those, but apparently did not do very well in his pre-draft meeting with the Steelers. That's why they passed on him at 14. They traded up to get Broderick Jones from Georgia. But Christian Gonzalez, based on tape, is an incredible prospect. I thought he was an easy top 10 pick, falls to 17, and in what seems to be not so stacked of a draft year, Christian Gonzalez could offer pretty tremendous value at 17. Stunned, Michael Mayer made it to day 2. Stunned. He was the 35th pick of the draft. He was taken after Sam Laporta, which was another big surprise of the 2023 draft, and a draft that featured many, many surprises and the most trades in NFL draft weekend history. So it was quite a weekend if you missed it. More content on the channel to come, obviously. But Michael Mayer is obviously a very good fit at 35. He was pretty much guaranteed to be a first-round pick, ends up falling out. That's how these things go sometimes. And he's just a really, really safe player. Great hands, not going to drop the football. I think he's as consistent as it gets at the position. Really would bet on him long-term. In the same way that, taking Tyree Wilson is trying to hit a home run and drafting Will Anderson is settling for a double, as we've heard reports say. And I've said that before in a video, not my own saying, but just taking that and kind of showing it. I think that's the same thing with Michael Mayer. I think that he's going to be pretty much guaranteeing yourself a double, and that's really, really good. I think he's going to be an incredible player, and for the Raiders, who unfortunately do not have Foster Moreau anymore, his contract ran out, and he was unfortunately diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Get well soon, Foster Moreau. I didn't even hear about that until quite recently, so really terrible news, but Michael Mayer presents an upgrade and an immediate starting tight end option at 35 and could be a really nice option for Jimmy Garoppolo, who has leaned on George Kittle historically. Just like Mayer, Bryant Branch was in my day 2 steals video. Best picks of round 2 and 3. Brian Branch, I thought, was a top 15 player in the draft. I understand why he goes at 45, the value that the league places on nickel corners and safeties is not very high. However, I think in a league that emphasizes more 3 wide receiver sets than ever, and some teams basically run a base nickel defense as opposed to what we'd see normally with a traditional 3-4 or 4-3, you need a guy like this. And yes, you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but for 1 year. Brian Branch is your long-term nickel corner. I think he's going to be one of the better ones in the league. Yes, you get him at this because of positional value, but I think it's an incredible pick. Just like with Michael Mayer, I feel really, really good about Brian Branch being a successful NFL player. I just think he's too instinctive. I know he didn't test extraordinarily well. Maybe if he tested really well, he goes in the first round, maybe even top 20, the earliest we would have seen a nickel-type player go. But man, do I love Brian Branch. And I love him for Detroit, who's really building a fantastic team. They had a pretty unusual approach in round 1 based on the way things seem to be trending, with linebackers falling out of the first round, running backs falling out of the first round. They took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. They took Jack Campbell at 18. But if you say that, hey, you got Brian Branch at 12, I go, all right, might seem a little bit early, but he's a really good player. I don't hate it. And Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, if he goes at 45, that's great value. So you just change around the order of where their draft picks actually went, and you start to feel a lot better about the draft. But what it comes down to is they got talent. And this is not grading every team. I'll talk more about the Lions in that video. But I just really love the Brian Branch selection. And I talked more about some of these in that steals of day 2 and 3. I don't want to include all the same guys, but Osiris Torrance at 59, I thought provided an immediate starting option at right guard, and you got him at 59. This was a guy that probably could have snuck into the first round. Just think it's, again, pretty great value. And then everyone was wondering why this guy fell. Adetomiwa Adebawore. Adebawore, even though it doesn't look like it'd be pronounced that way, Adebawore is a freak athlete. Apparently, it was coming out that teams just kind of were just really basing his evaluation more off of just the tape and not really caring about the freak athletic testing, which makes sense. And it also makes sense why the Colts drafted him. Chris Ballard, and I'll talk about this a lot in the Grading Every Team video, Chris Ballard loves the RAS athletes. Relative athletic score, a great metric by Math Bomb, Kent Lee Platt. That's how the Colts draft. They just draft the best athlete in pretty much every single scenario, just drafting off that list. And we'll talk more about some of their picks in that video, as I mentioned. But Adebawore, at pick 110, the upside is too much. I could understand thinking he might be a bit of a tweener, but having him as a rush specialist on the interior, and then maybe if you want more of a run focus or run stop focused attack on defense, you can play him on the edge on, maybe a first down, maybe a second down, depending on the down and distance, and then have him just unleash on interior offensive linemen on 3rd and long. I think he's going to be a pretty good rotational player at the very least. And at 110, I think that represents exceptional value. The upside, because of the unbelievable athleticism, is just too much to pass up on at this particular spot. And more love to the Colts, Josh Downs. I just thought he was a really, really safe player as well. I think he's going to be a really consistent player from the slot. And when you have a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson now, who you took at number 4 overall, get him some safe playmakers that are not really going to drop the football, that can get open easily. And I think that's what Josh Downs offers you. Reggie Wayne said this guy was easily the best receiver in the draft. And while I might not necessarily agree with that, easily, I thought Josh Downs was really very good. And before the Giants started bringing in a lot of these slot archetype receivers in free agency, a lot of short-term deals, by the way, I really like the idea of Josh Downs to the Giants. And I thought that you really could have sold me on that in the late 20s, and the Colts get him here at 79. Now, is he ever going to be this unbelievable world beater on the outside? Probably not his game just due to size limitations, but as a consistent slot receiver goes, I think Josh Downs certainly fits the bill. I'm not saying he can't ever win on the outside. It's just with his frame, it's going to be difficult to beat press. But as a free release guy from the slot goes, it's going to be really, really tough to contain him. And I think at 79, really, really nice, safe option. We're banging the Browns out back to back to back to back here. I've got 3 picks from the Browns that I really like down the board. I don't want to go over all these in depth because that's going to be in the Grading Every Team video. But basically with DTR, this is a developmental quarterback that does not have to play right away. At 140, a potential starter is very good value. I know you are committed to Deshaun Watson, which I have my feelings about that. But DTR, in the event of injury or otherwise, suspension, who knows, DTR presents a really unique set of skills. He's incredibly mobile, but also has a very good arm as well. Got to develop consistency as a passer and decision-making ability, but he got better every year at UCLA. The guy's the ultimate competitor. I love Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Yeah, is he ever going to be a superstar at quarterback? It's tough to say. We really need to see him develop more, and maybe he never really gets that opportunity. But I think at 140, taking a chance on him is only going to be an upside pick. There's no real risk here, only potential reward in my opinion. And I think you can say similar things about DeJuan Jones. He apparently dropped due to how much does he love football concerns. Heard that going around. And again, can't corroborate those, but DeJuan Jones was one of the best players at the Senior Bowl. He was dominant on day one. I think just checked out after that. I think he didn't do anything else because he's like, everyone saw I was the best. And that's fine. They know that. I don't have to do anything else. Just like Jermaine Johnson last year at the Senior Bowl, the defensive end from Florida State, or the edge, I'll call him. DeJuan Jones was very good. And his game profiles well in the Senior Bowl one-on-ones. And he really should have been good in those one-on-ones because it really fits what it is. He's so long, you can't really get around him. And in a one-on-one where you don't have to worry about, a stun or a twist, and it's just a guy coming at you, you can totally use your otherworldly size to your advantage. And when you look at someone that's 6'7" or 6'8", 300 and a billion pounds, that's the exact measurement, it's just going to be a tough guy to beat in those one-on-ones. So you do obviously worry about movement skills with somebody of this size, but as a pass protector, he is so massive that he will naturally be very, very tough to get around for any edge rusher. So it just... potential starter down the line at 111, you can't hate it. And I also might have some similar things to say about Luke Whippler, so we'll include him quickly. Got him at pick number 190, potential starter down the line in the interior. If there is an injury, which you have to worry about, Luke Whippler is not a bad option at this pick. Back-to-back Ohio State offensive lineman in this video. And Whippler has a chance to start at some point. When you get deep into the draft like this, it's an uphill battle to end up being a starter, but has a chance. And especially if there is an injury, this is a good guy to have at 190. And kind of a little bit more of a sleeper here, kind of a less popular name. It's John Gaines from UCLA. Went with the 122nd pick in the draft. And here's why he's on the list. He had a pretty unbelievable three-cone at 4.31. And three-cone for offensive linemen, especially on the interior, is usually a really good metric of future success. It's kind of like one of those hidden type of stats that actually results in being a pretty good player long-term. You can find some steals down the board. Like Jason Kelsey's a guy with a really good three-cone. The number is 4.47 overall, and he was significantly underneath that at 4.31. He was first of all offensive linemen at the combine in short shuttle as well. His movement skills are really good, and that translates on the interior of the offensive line. For a guard, you're going to pull. Got to be able to do it quickly. You got to get out to the second level quickly. And quickness on the interior of the offensive line for these big guys is pretty difficult to find. So based purely on, and his tape was good too, but based purely on his meeting athletic thresholds, I think this could end up being a really nice option for the Cardinals and a future starter. I'm a big Tyler Scott guy. I know he was one of Dane Brugler's highest rated receivers. And when you turn on the film with Tyler Scott, the dude can fly. I know he didn't test in the 4.2s or low 4.3s. He was in the 4.4s, which is a little disappointing just based on watching him play. Same thing with Jalen Hyatt. It's more of a game speed, and he will run right by you. I think he has the potential to be a 3-level separator, as we talk about, where you can win in the short, intermediate, and long ranges down the field. Tyler Scott is someone that could end up being an absolute steal. Darnell Mooney was a comparison Daniel Jeremiah threw out, and if you think back to Darnell Mooney at Tulane, it was a receiver who just was kind of faster than everybody and won down the field, and we never really got to see him in contested catch situations to see how that might translate in the NFL, and then he ended up being really, really good in those spots. Now, I don't think that's necessarily Tyler Scott. I think he's more of a true burner, but I really like the idea of playing him in the slot and just using his speed to destroy slot corners and linebackers if you are unfortunate enough to find that mismatch as a defense. But Tyler Scott's really good. I was really surprised to see Trey Tucker go ahead of him 33 picks earlier at 100. because I think Tyler Scott is the better player. And I think for a receiving core that needs a little bit more juice, Tyler Scott is a great, great, I would say, kind of injection of juice. That's a lot of J's. Unpopular letter, but there we go. Injection of juice into that offense. And you picture that the future, you might have Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore as your 1 and 2, or in that opposite order. And then Tyler Scott as a return man slash rotational player, and maybe earn some time in the slot or on the outside. Really, really like it. 133 was just, the value was too good. Whoever made this Jags graphic on the Jaguars graphic design team, you deserve a promotion. You can clip this, record it. If it gets to you, show it to your boss. You deserve a raise. This is beautifully done. And I also love the draft pick of Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. Was one of the most productive ACC pass rushers a year ago. And I think for the Jags, represents, at least at the beginning, a nice rotational pass rusher that can earn more playing time. I think he's a unique hybrid. Very, very good athlete. Ran in the 4.4s, which is, it's more common of linebackers nowadays, but it still shocks me every time I see it. So he's someone that you can kind of third and long, send him out there off the edge. He's going to be a mismatch for a tackle. And then potentially play him off ball as well if it comes to it. I think he's a classic Sam linebacker, and I think he can do a couple of different things for you. And at pick number 136, I really, really like his upside. I don't know if he ever becomes a starter. I do like the linebackers in that room. You invested some high picks on them last year. Devin Lloyd, of course, Chad Booma. If you want to include Trayvon Walker in that, I think you could, even though he is about as not linebacker as it could get from an outside linebacker. He's, the guy that can play defensive tackle sometimes, 3 tech, slide to the 4-eye, to the 5, to the outside. I think Trayvon Walker is a defensive lineman, but of course in the Jacksonville defense, it's not necessarily how he might be classified. But Yasir Abdullah, not comparable to Trayvon Walker. Don't know why I went on that tangent, but I think he could potentially earn playing time as a hybrid linebacker and a designated pass rusher. So I like Yasir Abdullah at 136, kind of like a little bit of a draft crush. As was A.T. Perry out of Wake. Went with the 195th pick in the draft. And man, A.T. Perry really, and he was somebody I found early in the process. Really liked him in the summer. He represents somebody at his size, which is 6'4" plus maybe, that can really win technically as a route runner, which is rare of that size. I think he's a separator with his technique rather than just using his size to moss people, even though he does have that, I would say, tool in the toolbox. Really, really like A.T. Perry. I was shocked he made it to number 195. And for an offense that's really looking for its next Michael Thomas, I'm not going to say that's necessarily A.T. Perry, but I think they have some similar skill sets. And whereas Michael Thomas really just thrived as a technician at wide receiver, I know everyone calls him slant boy, yada, 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 whatever. But I think that was more on the limitations of Drew Brees at the time and less so on Michael Thomas. And he was so dominant at doing what he would do with these quick releases off the line that who cares? You're moving the ball. You're catching the ball consistently. A.T. Perry's got great hands. I'm not going to say he's the next Michael Thomas, obviously, because that's comparing him to the receiver who caught the most catches in NFL history, I think prior to Cooper Kupp breaking that. But A.T. Perry, I think, offers you a similar chance at a steal if you can continue to develop him. I think he's going to be a really, really nice player. And then we'll end this video with Mr. Irrelevant. It's Desjuan Johnson from Toledo. I was super excited to see his name go with the last pick of the draft. He was somebody that Brett Coleman brought to my attention early in the process. He was an East-West Shrine Bowl guy. Here's why he's here. Undersized, about 6'2", 285, shorter arms, yet limitations as a result. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to get arms on and shed those blocks early. And I think that is something that he just will not be able to overcome just because you are a smaller guy with shorter arms. You're not going to grow those arms. It's just not going to happen, right? But he's someone who I think wins with with power, with effort, motor, and counter moves as a rusher, especially. I think he's a really, really nice player. And obviously, lofty Michael Thomas comparison to A.T. Perry. I wasn't trying to necessarily make that, just saying that I think he's got a pretty good chance of being a steal for that spot, trying to emphasize that. We know that undersized defensive linemen have worked out for the Rams before. Not making an Aaron Donald comparison, just saying that if there's any team that I think can get the most out of Desjuan Johnson and anyone that Desjuan Johnson can learn from that will help his game the most, it is Aaron Donald. So I think just purely from being around one of the best defensive players in NFL history, Desjuan Johnson has a pretty good chance of making something out of being the 259th pick. So rotational player, maybe fights for a roster spot, fights to earn time. But I really like taking a shot on him, and he is my last steal of the 2023 NFL Draft. Plenty more in here, and a lot of these guys won't end up being very good. That's just the reality. That's how that works. Development is going to be critical for any draft pick. But I hope these guys have a pretty good chance and end up making the most of their opportunity. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. More draft content to come, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.